Can you break down your understanding of how the Moors got to Spain, their role in Spain, and also their role in slave trading?
So when it comes to the Moors and their origins, this is also extremely interesting because there's never been a people on the continent who describe themselves as being Moors. There's been a people who have been described by Europeans as being Moors. And this was when the Europeans saw these people from North Africa and West Africa who had come into the Iberian Peninsula and invaded the Iberian Peninsula, beginning with Tariq bin Ziyad in 714. So what's interesting is that we know there was the Arab conquests of North Africa, and it was spearheaded by Amr bin As, who was one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He took over Egypt, and then from Egypt they continued to move westwards, and we saw under the general Uqba bin Nafi, they came into Tunisia. He established a capital in the city called Kairouan, and then from there his descendants and the Arabs who had come in from the Arabian Peninsula started to move westwards and westwards until they reached Morocco. Then we saw the first king of Morocco, who's the great-great-grandson of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's called Mawla Idris. His father was called Abdullah al-Kamil. His father was called Hassan al-Muthanna. His father was called Hassan ibn Abi Talib, who was the son of Fatima, the daughter of Prophet Muhammad. So there was 6 or 7 people between him and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He became the first king of Morocco. And so the Moors, as they were described by the Westerners, these people were Arabs originally, who came and they intermixed with the native people who were already in North Africa, who were the Berbers, or traditionally they're known as Amazigh. They call themselves Amazigh, which means the free people. They were referred to by the Westerners as the Berbers, and by the Arabs as well as being Berbers. So these were the original inhabitants of North Africa. Many of them, however, we also have to remember was that North Africa was a part of the Roman Empire. So there's a lot of Roman influence, European DNA in people in North Africa. If you go to certain countries in North Africa, they still have colosseums. So the same way you have the Colosseum in Rome, there's a Colosseum in Libya, and there's a Colosseum in Tunisia, and all of these places have remnants of Roman culture because they were part of the Roman Empire. So these people also mixed with the native people that were living there. And then we started to see as well, because of the trade between West Africa and North Africa, West Africans coming into North Africa. Some of them as enslaved people and some of them as free people. And so we have free traders coming in from West Africa and settling in North Africa who were black from West African ethnicities such as the Fulanis, the Wolofs, the Hausas, etc., who were settling in North Africa. And then some of them as well were enslaved, and there was a slave trade going on, which we'll talk about later, happening, where West Africans were also being transported to the north and settling there. All of these people, the thing that united them was the Islamic faith, that they were all Muslims. So you could see somebody of European descent, somebody of Arab descent, somebody of Amazigh descent, somebody of West African descent, living in North Africa, and they're all Muslims. In the same way, for example, being an American, you could be a Native American, you could be a white American, you could be an African American, you could be a Latino American, but you're all considered Americans. That's the same way the Moors were a makeup of different ethnicities and different languages and different cultures, but they all came together in their Islamic faith. So what's interesting now is that the concept of being a Moor was something that they never said themselves. They never referred to themselves as Moors, but when they entered into the European continent and the Europeans saw them and interacted with them, they described them as Moors. And this was a term used from the Latin Mauritania, which was the word used by the Roman Empire to describe their colonies in North Africa. So all of these places in North Africa, according to the Romans, they called it Mauritania. And then that's when you started to see that the Westerners, in referring to their European classifications of the people of North Africa, started to refer to these people as Moors. And so it's interesting for me to see when people talk about the Moors and they try to make them out as if they were one ethnicity or one people. They weren't one people, they were a mixture of different peoples. They were a mixture of Arabs and Amazighs and West Africans specifically as well, who all intermixed in their location in North Africa, and then from there migrated into the Iberian Peninsula when they conquered the Iberian Peninsula. And people would come from all over the world. So I saw, for example, in one of my books I wrote about a character Oh yeah, sorry. In one of my books, I speak about a character called Ziryab. And Ziryab is one of the most influential people on Western history and culture. He was an Afro-Arab man, so he was a black man who came from Iraq. But because of the economic prosperity in Spain at the time, he moved from Baghdad to Spain. When he got to Spain, he was one of the people who he added extra strings to the lute, which was the precursor to the guitar. So he was a musician. That was his primary role. After music as well, he was also into fashion and he was into culture. So he was the person that invented the prototype for toothpaste. He was the person that invented the prototype for deodorant. He was the person that invented the concept of a 3-course meal, having soup and starters first, then the main course, and then dessert. He was the person that invented one of the earliest shampoos and conditioners. So all of these things in Western society, he was the person that invented the concept of drinking from crystal glasses and not from metal containers that they used to drink from as well. He was also the person that invented the concept of having clothes for the seasons. So he invented the concept of having spring season, winter season, summer season in terms of clothing and wearing clothes and all these different things. So many of the things that we see as foundational when it comes to Western culture and civilization, they come from this Afro-Arab man who was described by Europeans as a Moor. In reality, he was an Arab of African descent who lived in Iraq and then from Iraq moved to Spain. So we can see then that these people were multifaceted people, and they had been labeled by Western, misunderstanding to have been one people when they were different peoples who came under one nationality.